why are you guys here? Like, what is it about the Continuous Delivery Foundation that made you purchase a ticket? Yeah, hit me.
Standards in CI/CD.
Standards?
Yeah, and honestly, for us, it comes down to a set of standards of where this is where we should be. This is how the industry should be moving, more than company X decided to do it like this, maybe we do them. Well, company Y decided to do it like this, maybe we should do it like them. Having something where there's kind of a community idea here is where, okay, now this is probably the right way to go, and the consensus of the community agrees.
Okay, cool. Anyone else? No? All right. Hi. Sorry, we're early. My bad.
No worries, no worries.
Should have checked. That's what I get. Okay. So I think you all know me by now. Lori, hi. So I'll be moderating this panel, but what we're going to do is we're going to just pass the mic down, and we want everyone to introduce themselves and the project they work on and how long you've been a part of that project. Does that work? You guys got that? All right. You can start with Brad. Just turn it on.
Hello. Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
My name's Brad, as you just met me before. I've been working with Ortelius maybe a year and a half, and dabbling in a bit of CDEvents with Andrea, and another few projects here and there, and also a maintainer of the Kaplan project. Yeah.
Hey everyone, my name is Dibyo. I'm a software engineer at Google. I'm a maintainer for the Tekton project. Been with Tekton for about 3 years or so now. And before that, I was with, actually worked on Spinnaker for a little bit. Yep.
Hi, as you met me before, Sudhindra Rao. I'm with JFrog, and we kicked off the Pyrsia project last year. That's where I started. We built a team, and now we just released the 0.2 version of it, so very excited to be here and talk about Pyrsia and software supply chain.
My name's Adam Kaplan. I work at Red Hat. I've been with the Shipwright project for about 2 years now, technically before it was Shipwright. And also I've been contributing to Tekton for about a year now. And before then, I did bit on top of Kubernetes and did Doc contributions there as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Cameron Motevasselani. I'm the maintainer for the Spinnaker project, and I've been working on it for about 4 years now.
Hi everyone, my name is Andrea Frittoli. I'm with IBM. I am a maintainer of the CDEvents project, which I co-founded with other colleagues from the CDEvents and the CDF. It's been about a year or less. Yeah, I'm also a maintainer of the Tekton project, which I worked on since when it was Knative.
Okay. So, hands up in the room, do all of you know what each of those projects do? Kind of? All right, so this is going to be your opportunity, and I want you to stand up and give your 30-second project pitch as to why you should be a part of the project you're currently working on. And I'm going to hand it to you first, because you're there.
All right, CDEvents. So we're just talking about standards. And yeah, that's a CDEvent is a specification for a standard way of sending events in CI/CD infrastructure. And so, yeah, so we really believe in interoperability. So if that's your thing, join us. I mean, we're looking for contributors. So.
Okay.
Tell them about your
Oh. Oh yeah, yeah. We are also participating in Oktoberfest. Yeah. So.
Are you based anything on the Jazz platform?
No.
Okay. Next.
Right on. Hey everyone. Yeah, Cameron again. Working on Spinnaker. Spinnaker is a multi-cloud deployment platform. So we focus solely on continuous delivery and works with multi-clouds at very large scale. So it's fun.
I work on Shipwright. Shipwright makes it easy to build container images on Kubernetes and cloud-native infrastructure. We want to make it not just easy, but also when you build it with Shipwright, you're building it the right way. So come and join us. We're on GitHub and Slack.
Did you like that? When you build with Shipwright, you build it the right way. Like, come on, that's marketing right there, guys.
Like I said, I work on Pyrsia. Pyrsia is a project which can be the single repository for all your open source, which gives you a provenance log and which tells you what happened and how it was built. It will also have multi-node build verification and also resilient peer-to-peer distribution model. So if you're interested in Rust, blockchain, Pyrsia, or just writing code, come talk to us.
Hey, so Tekton's mission is to be like an industry standard for CI/CD systems. We care deeply about flexibility and standardization. We invest a lot in having a shared catalog of tasks that you can reuse across, things across the board, across CI systems and platforms. It's also been almost 5 years of the project, 4 and some, so it's like a really exciting time to join the project. Come work with us, Andrea, Adam, and a lot of other cool people. So.
Yeah, for the Ortelius project, we just got a really big grant for blockchain. So that if you're interested in learning a bit of blockchain, that's quite a cool place to explore. So Steve has a lot of issues there at the moment. It's just starting the project off as well. So that's based on Ripple. I think the grant was about 75,000 US, so it was quite considerable. So. Yeah, and there's lots of issues for good first issues through to really advanced ones as well.
Cool. So I think this gentleman, what was your name? Dylan said it best. Like, it's all about community, and it's about like finding the common way to do things. So why don't you guys tell me a little bit why you joined the community that you're in, or what the community that you're in is like? And I'm just gonna take Cameron.
Right on, yeah, sweet. Should I stand up again? I guess so. I'm doing it right now. So yeah, I joined the community because it was really vibrant, really fun. I met a lot of cool people. I met Dibyo through it. So I mean, I met all of you all here now because of it as well. So working with the community is great. Over time things have shifted, and we're trying to bring it back to the original state it was in terms of health.
Yeah, I guess for me is being a part of the CD Foundation means that it helps us figure out how we fit in with the broader ecosystem. Since we try to be doing one thing and do one thing kind of well, it's important for us to see the big picture, and being a part of this group here and everyone else who is here with us today goes a long way. So I'm glad to be here.
I can share a little bit of background. The way we started Pyrsia was based on some experience we had previously, where maintaining a project as one company often has a deadline, and after that nobody looks at that project anymore. So we started with the motivation to start as a community project. That's where I met Steve Taylor of Ortelius, and he sort of pushed us into writing things that way, publishing that way, and starting as a community first. So from day one, we had community first meetings. All our meetings are open, and we are just wanting to work with people from different orgs and really share ownership of it.
So Tekton was born out of the Knative open source project. So just started out from an open source project. It was one of the initial members of CDF, and since I joined the project, it's always been like really fun to work with people across the community. I'll echo the whole having open working group meetings and having all your discussions out in the open. It's a pretty cool experience to be part of. So yeah, so that's great.
I first started the Ortelius community from Tracy Raglan. She reached out to me and asked if I wanted to start doing some contributions. I then met Steve Taylor as well, who we used to have an APAC friendly meeting and talk every second Friday, and I really like, he's been in the game for a while and could learn a lot off him, so especially Tracy as well. So that's sort of what got me to go to the project, and then there's a nice diverse group of people in there as well, so that was also good.
And I joined the special interest group. I'm in interoperability and events leader, and we have these things at the CDF with people that care about similar type of problems, and we meet together and discuss about things and share experiences. We have people joining doing presentation about how they use events or what kind of interoperability issues they have, and from this discussion, and that's how the CDEvents project was born.
Does the audience have any questions? No? Okay, let's keep going. So what are some of the challenges that you face working in an open source project? Because, you know, some people are being paid to work on this project, but other people are just strictly volunteering and doing it because they have a passion for tech. And I'm gonna hand it off to Adam first.
Yeah, so probably the biggest challenges for us is ensuring that when someone does come, that they have a good experience, that we have something that they say, hey, I want to check out Shipwright, I want to do something with it, that we can guide them through the path of going from user to being a contributor and being a part of that community. So some of that is like having a good set of good first issues. And as you mentioned before with Hacktoberfest, we also recently added ourselves to the Hacktoberfest list. And shameless plug, Hacktoberfest, you still got a few more days left. So please go ahead, send those PRs. We're happy to take a look at them. And yeah, a lot for me, what a lot of open source and building an open source community is about is sustainability. So when someone comes and makes a contribution, that contribution can last, and that just because it's there doesn't mean that just rots on the vine, that someone else can pick it up and carry it forward.
One of the things I have found is that it forced us to do things in a different way, like writing documentation, making sure that documentation is available and searchable and findable to people who occasionally visit. Like, hey, the project has moved on, but has the documentation moved on? And if it didn't, then we got immediate feedback saying, I tried something, I followed the documentation, things didn't work. That means we need to up our documentation game, or basically communication strategy, right? So that is what I found was better, because people sort of came outside of the core group and started asking questions.
I will sort of echo some of that in the sense that, you know, it forces you to work in like a slightly different way. Like when you have contributors that are, you know, sort of across time zones all over the world, it's sort of hard to get, you know, like face-to-face meetings. You know, sometimes we try to rotate our working groups across like different time zones, but even then that can take a while. So like we try to focus a lot on like doing things async, like having like a formal like design process, like issues and Slack, you know, that sort of a thing. And we also try to like make it easy for contributors, and not just like code committers, but like people who can contribute just by, you know, answering questions, updating documentation, etc. We try to have that like sort of, you know, written down so it's easily discoverable. We have a GitHub repo for like, you know, the community where you can like go in and figure out how to contribute to the project. We have like, you know, like a contributor ladder, so you can know how to like progress up the community. We think it's like super important to like, you know, sort of grow like occasional contributors through the cycle. You cannot just have one or two maintainers, but like it's important to get like new contributors and sort of like help them, you know, grow and become part of, you know, have ownership in the community. So yeah, it's a lot on that.
Yeah, one of the problems we face is we mentor a lot of new people as well, so we're finding a big gap from beginner to maintainer as well. So we're struggling a little bit to try and train those sort of the approvers. I guess for other projects, some challenges as well is funding. So if you're not backed by a big company like Jenkins X, it can be really difficult, and funding's getting harder and harder to secure. So that's probably one big challenge as well.
Yeah, I'll say for Spinnaker, let's see, the pandemic hit, and the leadership structure kind of, I don't want to say decayed, but declined, let's say. So we revived the leadership structure, and now we've got a new technical oversight committee, and expect a blog post about that pretty soon. We've got 9 really interested companies that are both users, contributors, etc., and we're staffing all of the efforts that we're trying to do. Around those efforts are lowering the barrier of entry to entering the project, and documentation is a huge part of that.
All right, it's hard to add something to the great things that you said, but yeah, I would echo that. Like, yeah, taking the time to actually prepare bite-sized things for new contributors to come in and start with something, and make sure the work, every contribution is appreciated, so that people feel like welcome, having a clear path to, you know, contribution. And also, yeah, maybe one thing that wasn't mentioned, maybe it's code of conduct. So have clear code of conduct, make sure people feel comfortable and safe environment where coming and joining the community. I think that's very important.
Cool. So today we had some really big announcements. We had Pyrsia joining CDF, we had CDEvents have their first release, and we had Tekton graduate. So these are like big wins, but what are some small wins in your project that you like can't help but like get super excited about and celebrate? Cam, you're shaking your head.
Totally, yeah. I mean, I mentioned we're revitalizing the community, but part of that is we're modernizing Spinnaker. So we're doing some basic stuff like upgrading Spring Boot, Gradle versions, and it's gonna bring Spinnaker up to date with the modern development, let's say. So those are some under the covers wins, but they're really helpful for getting more contributors in the project.
I'll share a couple. We just released the 0.2 version, and this is the first whole network of Pyrsia that you can try out. And to get to this was a lot of struggle, a lot of learning, but we have come a long way from not knowing Rust to all the way to delivering something that is working. And that is huge. Even though it looks like 0.2, a very small thing, but it is huge for the team, and the team can just go forward with this. The other story I want to share is there was this one gentleman who showed up at our community meeting, got interested, and then the first thing that this person said is, based on my company commitments, I can only spend 20% of time on Fridays and maybe commit here and there. But that person has been regular at our stand-ups, every single meeting, and has been contributing continuously and being part of the community from the get-go, right? So we want such people who we can stick with and work with together, grow them through the maintainer ladder, and we want to create a community that welcomes these people.
Okay, so I guess like a lot of our presentations today focused on like pipelines, which is sort of like the core, and it's very exciting times because it's V1 and like graduating. But a lot of things that excite me is like all of the momentum in the community that is going on, and even like some of our smaller projects, like Tekton results for like storing logs, etc. For a while it was just like my 5% time project. I would just contribute every like 2 weeks or something, and then thanks to Adam here, now we have like so many cool features being built. So that's
Gentleman Alan.
Yeah, and then everyone else. So we've talked to some like cool Tekton users who have started contributing to the project. Some of the discussions around workflows with Red Hat. So it's all the little like there's just so much feature work, etc. going on in addition to all the stability stuff that
You should see the smile on your face. That's awesome.
Yeah, I guess for CDEvents, for me, a big win of the project has been like these 2 days and seeing like CDEvents. Presentation with CDEvents being used there in the wild. So I think it's a great win for us to see this happening. So
I just want to say, getting back to what Cameron was saying about the pandemic affecting us, we were not immune for a while at Shipwright. Things were like languishing, and like in the core project, we would go months without having a release. And so I'm very proud of the fact that we were able to build ourselves up back to the point where now we have sustainable releases. We have a regular cadence that we're trying to at least stick to. Doesn't always work the case, but like we're getting things out the door. We're making improvements with each release. And the beta workshop that we had was a really wonderful opportunity where we all came together and really helped craft that vision that we want to have for the future and chart that course of where we want to go.
Okay, we got a question.
So when you talk about charting the course with a community, it can be hard because different people want different things. Can you all talk a little bit about how you're prioritizing what gets done and when, and balancing that with sort of contributor interests, because those things can be in conflict?
Nice. That's a good one.
Well, I guess I can start. So one of the things that we adopted in the Shipwright community was an enhancement proposal process that actually we kind of modeled off of Tekton's process, which they built it off of Kube and Kube, Python, and actually, so last year's KubeCon, Christy Wilson, Kirsten Garrison and I did a virtual panel discussion on the enhancement proposal process and why each of us went down that path. One of the things that came out of that was the fact that it helped us have that kind of structured, guided conversation as to what contributors want to bring to the project and whether or not that contribution could be sustainable and be kept within the project and, say, continue to go on if the original contributor left. It also helped identify really the things that the project cared about. And for each of our projects, we were in different stages of our maturity. And so Shipwright at the time wasn't so much concerned about, like, say, observability, monitoring, things like that. A project like Kubernetes, they are very rigorous about, can you monitor this thing? Can you debug it? If you're going to change an API, are you going to break people in the process? Those sorts of things. So that's sort of one of the mechanisms that we have to ensure that when a feature comes in, that there is consensus that this is a thing that's a good fit for the project.
We were for the Spinnaker project, we were really intentional when we revived the technical oversight committee. We did get a good mix of vendors, users, and cloud providers on the technical oversight committee. The very first meeting, what we did was we polled everyone and said, hey, why'd you join? What are you here to do? And then we took those desires and set expectations around, if you're going to be part of this committee, you need to do the things that help us accomplish these goals. So in that sense, it was very much born out of what everyone wants to work on and contribute to. In that way, we can actually ensure that these tasks get worked on and completed.
You go first, Andrea.
Okay. Well, I guess for CDEvents, I mean, we don't have a proper end user community because we are creating the project. We just made the first release. But what we do is through the interest group, we invite potential users and projects and open source projects to present what they're doing and what their needs could be around events and interoperability. And that's what we use to drive the roadmap.
That actually is a very good segue to my question. I think one of the markers that your project is doing really well is you have a ballooning growth in people who are actually using it, but not necessarily contributing or maintaining it, and which is great. With commercial software, you have natural ways to talk to those people and get their perspective, which is really important to be successful. So either you have a licensing arrangement in place, maybe an account management team that you can go to, or maybe you just instrument your software to spy on them, because that's very common as well. In open source, you don't have those things. So do you feel the absence of sort of just the quiet user's perspective in what you do? And if so, what do you do about it?
So, sorry, I don't want to hog the stage. So, if anyone has some thoughts, so we had hit this issue a few years ago with the Spinnaker project. We were like, well, what's everyone doing with it? So we worked with Google and the CDF and Linux Foundation to come up with a set of open source statistics and telemetry that gets sent back to a pretty locked down data set. And anyone can request access and talk to me if you have interest in this. But we took great care to ensure privacy and not leaking any information. These are very large companies using Spinnaker, and you can definitely opt out, but we took great care to make sure we're not leaking any info.
I would just acknowledge that what you mentioned is like an actually big problem, I think, because we don't really have like a great way to say, like, you know, a tick box saying like, hey, we haven't done like the Spinnaker style like surveys to like, or like, you know, like data to see like, okay, who's using Tekton. A lot of it has been organic, like people from different large companies open issues, and sometimes I will just like ask them on Slack, hey, so this looks cool, what are you guys using it for? You know, something like that. And sometimes the other way happens, like they will just contact you and like, hey, we are doing this cool thing, like what do you want to do? Which is, you know, it's a great organic way to get like user stories, but I think it would be very nice if you could have like some sort of standards or something around like open source like usage like collection in a way that's privacy preserving, and people don't feel like iffy about like phoning home data, etc. But like we can still get features and like user data, etc. Features and like statistics that help us make like better decisions for like prioritization, etc. So I think that'd be really cool.
Any other audience questions? Nope. Okay, so each of you work on multiple projects, but you have a main project that you maintain. But how do you work together with other projects? I think for each talk we saw, there was multiple projects involved in the project that you're currently working on. So what's it like for an open source project to use another open source project in building your own project? And if I said project one more time, it's a lot of projects. Who wants to go? All right.
So one of the things that we started with was figuring out what do we really care about in terms of Pyrsia code, and what will we suffer with if it's not supported well. So one of the technologies that we are using is called libp2p. It's a peer-to-peer communication mechanism and a library by Protocol Labs. So that is where we are investing. We are actually going back to that community, talking to them about how they are building it, contributing back with bugs, and at least at this stage, we are contributing back with bug reports and making sure that they hear us. And what we intend to do is actually spend a reasonable amount of time in contributing back. Same thing we have done with the with Rust libraries that we are using. We are going back and submitting bug reports, and we are really early in this stage, but we intend to just continue to do this so that we can benefit. So there's a little bit of selfishness there.
I can go ahead and speak to this because Shipwright has a direct and immediate dependency on Tekton. We are literally, what we're doing is we take the build definition and it gets turned into a raw Tekton task run. So some of what we have to do is actually show up and be a part of the community just like anyone else. Still more as an end user, but at the same time, when there are big changes, like they're working towards a V1 API, that's something that is really very critical to us, because if there's something that we depend on right now in the beta API that's going away, we have to be sure we're voicing our concerns and ensure that whatever replaces it will work with what we're trying to do, or if not, we have to come up with an alternative.
Oh, got a question from the audience. Okay, thanks.
I don't mean to cut you off or anything, but I'm actually curious how you guys handle that idea of when to deprecate something, because there is probably a lot of people in the communities that are like, wait, I still use this. At what point do you say, okay, yeah, sorry, too bad, we got to move on because it's legacy code?
Yeah, that is such a good question, and I wish we had like a great answer for it, but we just try to be clear and consistent with our communications about it. So even for our alpha APIs, like where we promise like we have, it's basically, for experimentation, we reserve the right to make like backwards incompatible changes at any point. We still try to give like at least one release's worth of notice before we make, deprecate something or something else. Specifically for like beta and others, we try to like give a much longer deprecation period. Like for Tekton, it's like 9 months before we will take away the feature. But in the same time, the other thing we try to do is like build out the alternative in like a way that you can opt into it first. So we really try to not just take away anything without also like providing some kind of an alternative there first. That being said, it's definitely a challenge, and it's always, there's no like, it's always on a case-by-case basis, like particularly for the feature. So, yeah.
Yeah, so going back to the user community, that helps for sure. But it's also true that once an API or something is out, you have to assume that someone is using it. You don't know really. So yeah, API policies and clear deprecations, but also be like pretty strict and follow your deprecation rules, because so at some point you have your rules, and then if someone is actually using it and he didn't saw the deprecation, they didn't see the deprecation, and they really have an issue with it, they can reach out to the community and we find a solution. So.
I was gonna say, I think we follow the similar rule that Tekton has with Shipwright, where we deprecate first, then remove the field, partially because one of our main users of Shipwright actually is running it in production. And so for us to make any kind of API change, they need to have that time to make the migration plan before we get rid of something. We also use the ship process to discuss any deprecations or removals that we want to have. The beta API workshop was kind of an exception to that. It was kind of like more of a synchronous discussion, but we still had like a large HackMD document that we were working through where the contributors were able to propose changes to the API, things that we wanted to do, and then we took a vote live during like I think it was like a 3-hour session to decide what we wanted to keep and what things we wanted to get rid of.
A funny story that happened in your community? Funny story?
Oh, funny story.
Funny story.
Nobody crashed and burned and had to like, funny stories.
I guess I can't speak too much to this myself, but I know in the early days, Netflix was running Spinnaker at head, and there were many PRs that broke Netflix for a bit. They have great deployment policies there, so they recovered quickly and all that, but it's just the early days of CD, right?
Okay. Any other questions? So I think let's wrap it up with what is the future of your project? Like what is like your main goal and how are you going to get there?
Okay, so for us, the future is to be in all tools, as many as possible, and services, and everyone is using CDEvents, so to actually become a standard. Yeah, so to make interoperability possible. And how we get there is a lot of legwork, well, not legwork, but like talking to the different community, reaching out, and like has been said, like, yeah, be open to contribute and talk to people, and yeah.
For the Spinnaker project, so we are a multi-cloud deployment tool. So, you know, VMs, cloud, private cloud, public cloud, whatever you want. So where the market kind of goes and where that major usage is, Kubernetes is the big thing right now. In 5-10 years, will it still be the big thing? I don't know. You might need a way to migrate from one platform to another. So in that sense, we really look to all of you all to help out with that.
I think for Shipwright, immediately we want to get the beta API out in front of people so people can start using it. I think beyond that horizon, we want to embed more of the software supply chain feature sets that people want and demand out of container images. Things like having an SBOM automatically generated inside of your Shipwright build, adding things like Trivy or any kind of, because we want to be tool agnostic, any kind of image scanner alongside the build so that you just have, when you do something in Shipwright, you are surfacing the security of your image right away so that you can react to it. And then just other general user features like we recently had a introduced over the summer, volume support, which can enable caching, and so things that can improve build times are also things that we would look into.
So for Pyrsia is a distributed network that serves binaries. So if people don't join, it becomes really small. So that's the first goal, that we want people to join and start distributing binaries over the large network and scale it out. And the other vision that we have is how we use Git or default to Git to find out what is happening with source code. We would like Pyrsia to be that for binaries and be able to look back at which binaries and which dependencies you're using and go deep into that. So that's where we're going.
Sure. So for Tekton, like the most immediate thing is the V1 API release. But beyond that, there's like a lot of other feature work that's going on. On the security supply chain track, there is making sure Tekton is SALSA L3 compatible. So not just like a badge, but like actually making sure your provenance is actually non-falsifiable and you can actually verify it. making sure that we can do that by default. We're investing quite a bit in like the catalog and the ecosystem around it. So you have like, the artifact hub where you can like share tasks and reuse tasks. And we're looking into ways to provide ways to like sign and verify your tasks. So you can say, you can make guarantees about like, okay, this task does what it says, provably. So things like that. From like a project community standpoint, we would really love to like grow the set of community owners and maintainers and like have, more representation across, like a wider array of like end users and like vendors, etc. So yeah, exciting times.
Yeah, for us, it's also growing the community and stepping up some of the and getting the blockchain project off the ground as well. So if anyone has experience in blockchain, we actually need some help. So yeah, for the next year, we're probably looking at finishing that off.
So if there are any other questions for, yes, oh, there's one more. Okay, sweet. We got time. This one works.
Does this still work? No.
Other than the project that you work on, what is your favorite project or tool in the continuous delivery space right now? Like, what's the first one that comes to mind where you say, all right, if you're not paying attention to this project, you should be?
Microphone.
Yeah, for me, it's CDEvents. I think is a hot space, and the whole interoperability is the future. So that's definitely a hot one to look at, and I think we're going to see that go through all the projects in CD as well. So for me, it would be CDEvents.
Yeah, I will sort of echo the whole interoperability theme here. I think like CDEvents looks like a really cool way to like actually make that happen. So with things like Pyrsia, etc., that sounds really cool. It'd be great if they could all interoperate. Personally, I have a soft spot for build tools, so we use this one called KO. Like it's a really simple Go build tool that does like building by default, comes with SBOMs and a lot of other cool stuff. So we use it to build like Tekton. So it's, yeah, that's something I find very interesting.
Yeah, so from the CD foundation perspective, the one that I look at more often than not is Tekton, actually. Just trying to emulate how they're building the brand, how people are just organically talking about Tekton when they talk about CI/CD pipelines. They talk about Jenkins, and the other thing they talk about today is Tekton, like getting to that and making that as the future.
I guess for me, I'm going to piggyback off of Co. We use Co in the Shipwright project to build all of our controllers, and through it we automatically get SBOM, we get the signature out of it. We love it. It's a great tool, and just for us in general, just the space of having these language-specific build tools that do the right things is something that we're really excited to see. Jib is another one that falls into this category, and truthfully, I think Build Packs 2 is doing a lot of really great things in this space. The other thing that I really love is what's going on in the workflows group, and Pipelines as Code in particular. Definitely check it out. It's just like awesome, where it's just your Tekton pipeline is in alongside your Git code, and you have a look and feel of like GitHub Actions, but it can run anywhere.
I'm going to echo the sentiment around CDEvents. We have an RFC to the project right now, and it needs some work. We want to expand the scope of it rather than keep it narrow. So we do have some work to do to make it happen, but yeah, CDEvents.
Cool. Well, I'm happy to hear so many CDEvents. But yeah, so I guess Pyrsia is very new, but it's definitely looks very exciting. So that's an area where I will be looking. And outside of the CDF, I would say if you're not familiar with Sigstore, look at it, because their mission is, I think, fantastic to make it easy to, do the right thing with security. So yeah.
Okay, and because I'm in marketing, I'm going to give these guys one more opportunity to tell you where the best place is to connect with them. So, guys, is it your website? Is it Slack? Like, holler at you so we all can like get in touch.
Right, so CDEvents is on the CDF Slack, and that's the best place to get in touch with us. But if you don't have Slack or don't want to use it, we have a mailing list or GitHub issues and discussions.
Website.
And website.
What's your
Oh,
website?
cdevents.dev.
Okay.
Yeah, for us, we're spinnaker.io for our website to get that out there. But Spinnaker Slack, there's a link on the front page to join Spinnaker Slack on our website. And the governance channel is where I would recommend everyone to join to talk to the TOC.
For Shipwright, the website is shipwright.io. We have links to our Slack channel, GitHub, and our mailing list. For us, we have weekly community meetings, 9 a.m. Eastern, and we always post the agenda on GitHub, hopefully sometimes the week before, sometimes it might be the day before, but yeah, if you want to join and have something you want to talk about, that's probably the best way to reach out to us.
Yeah. The website for Pyrsia is simple, pyrsia.io, and at the bottom of the page, you'll find all the links to connect with us.
Okay, yeah, similarly for Tekton, it's tekton.dev. And if you go to the website, we have a contributor section that leads to all the links for our Slack, our working groups, our community page, our mailing list, everything. We tend to share like all of our docs with our mailing lists. All of our working groups are open. If the times don't work, we record them so you can watch the recordings and like, ask a question on our Slack channel. So yeah, every avenue you can, we'll try to help you. So.
Our one is Ortelius.io, and we have a Discord channel. We also have GitHub as well. So, and if you can't find that, then you can just go to the CDF Slack, and you can find us in there as well.
So I'd like for everybody to give our panelists a nice round of applause, and thank you so much.